Channel Sports Central, we're going over our next team projection of this offseason, and it's going to be over the Wisconsin Badgers. And this is a team that was 4-3 last season, ended up having a disappointing season. I think we all can agree with that, as Wisconsin ended up missing out on the Big Ten title game as well. But I definitely think Wisconsin will be right back in the conversation to make it back to Indianapolis this December. And that being said, we're going to be going over a few players that Wisconsin will be returning, who they're going to be losing, and also looking at their schedule for the first time this offseason. Starting out with the previous 6 games for Wisconsin. And looking at this team, I mean, they started out the season pretty well. They put up 45 on Illinois. They beat Michigan 49-11 in Ann Arbor. Pretty good win there for Wisconsin, especially at the start of the season. But after that, things started to go downhill for Wisconsin. This was a team that only put up 20 points over the span of 3 games there between Northwestern and Iowa. They lost to Northwestern 7-17. That's really when we started to see Northwestern really shape out to be a great team. They also lost to Indiana 6-14. Indiana was also again same thing with Iowa. I mean, that final score there was 7-28, but overall, I mean, they only put up 20 points through 3 games there, which is definitely going to be, I mean, it's tough to put up wins when you're only putting up single digits in the scoring margin. But if you look at Wisconsin here, I mean, they did get a huge win against Minnesota. 20-17 was the final score there on December 19th. That's what put them into a bowl game against Wake Forest, which they ended up winning that game, which was huge for momentum going into the season. 42-28 was the final score there. So for Wisconsin, this was a team that they started really well, they finished really well, but the middle of the season there was pretty rough for Wisconsin. This team was about to go 2-4. I mean, if they would have lost to Minnesota there, they wouldn't have made it to a bowl game, or it would have been more than likely that they wouldn't be going to one, because I mean, they would be 2-4. But the good thing is they did win that game. That put them in a bowl game. Got a win against Wake Forest, and they finished out the season 4-3. Looking at the trend over the season for Wisconsin, this was a team that was 2-1 in the first 3 games. Then in the last 4 games, this team was 2-2 overall. So yeah, for Wisconsin, this was a team that certainly, even though they had their ups and downs, it was still overall not a terrible season, getting a bowl win and finishing out 4-3. Here's a roster outlook for the season. Return their starting quarterback Graham Mertz, which Graham Mertz obviously had a huge season here, because I mean, he had to step in for Jack Coan, which Jack Coan was expected to be the starter until, of course, Jack Coan was injured, so he was out for the entire season. Graham Mertz took over. Didn't have a terrible season. He put up 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Not a terrible season for Graham Mertz at all. So that's definitely going to be a player that I think has potential to improve a lot going into the 2021 season. He's going to have a huge impact on this team's success. If Graham Mertz plays well, I could easily see Wisconsin making it pretty far and definitely being a main contender in that Big Ten West. But if you look at, I mean, Jack Coan, he transferred away. He's at actually Notre Dame now. So Jack Coan will not be with the team next season. And it looks like Graham Mertz will be the starting quarterback for Wisconsin for the next couple of years, for that matter. If you look at the running back core, they do lose their top running back in Garrett Grishek. He put up 419 yards, 2 touchdowns last season, which is not that terrible. I mean, if you look at the running back core for Wisconsin, they've always got several really good running backs. I mean, we've seen that over the past decade. They had Jonathan Taylor. He just moved on to the NFL. He's a rookie this season. They had Melvin Gordon before that, Monte Ball. I mean, if you look at Wisconsin's successful offenses, they've always had a really good running back, and we've seen that over the past decade and even past that. And really for Wisconsin, I mean, this season, they did not have a very defined running back, and that was definitely something that was noticeable this year. I mean, they got a couple of good running backs. They got Jalen Berger and Garrett Grishek, but otherwise, I mean, yeah, this team didn't really have a very defined running back, and that's definitely going to be something that's going to be very important, I think, for the Badgers moving into next season, is whether or not they can get a more defined running back and a running back that can take over the rushing core and put up some good yardage. But Jalen Berger last season, he's the second running back. He's going to be the top one next season. Put up 314 yards and 2 touchdowns this past season. And of course, they got Nakia Watson also coming back. Watch out for him this upcoming season, as he put up nearly 200 yards and 3 touchdowns last year. So that's going to be definitely a very crucial part of this offense in the rushing core. If you look at the receiving core, they got tight end Jake Ferguson coming back. He's definitely going to be a first-round draft pick in the 2022 NFL draft. He's definitely a very high-impact player on this offense. All around just does a really good job offensively, putting up 305 yards and 4 touchdowns on the season, which, I mean, those stats seem pretty low, but through 7 games for a tight end, like, those are some pretty good stats. So Jake Ferguson is definitely going to be a tight end to watch out for going into the 2021 season. They do lose their top receiver in Jack Dunn. That is definitely going to be something to watch out for there. He put up 260 yards and a touchdown on the season. But overall, I mean, they do return their third receiver in Dyke. That's definitely going to be something with Tremere Dyke to watch out for. He put up this season right around 240 yards. So they had 3 receivers in there that had very similar stats as far as yardage is concerned. And Dyke is definitely going to have a huge role in this offense next season, likely being the top receiver. They do lose their second wide receiver in Kendrick Pryor. That's definitely going to be something to watch out for. But overall, I mean, I think Dyke is definitely going to do just fine with leading the receiving corps. Same thing with Jake Ferguson. He's also going to have a huge impact on this offense. If you look at the defensive line, they do lose one on there. They lose 2 defensive linemen, 3 linebackers. 3 linebackers, by the way. I will repeat that. That's definitely going to be something that could have a huge impact going into next season. Losing 3 linebackers, that's going to be pretty tough. This is going to be a pretty young linebacker core going into next season. So that could be a tough part of this defense, possibly a weak spot. They definitely got to have that figured out if they're going to make it to the Big Ten title game. But they also lose 2 in the secondary, so overall this defense does lose 7 starters going into next season. That definitely could come back to hurt quite a bit once we get into the season, because I mean, you're going to have a pretty inexperienced defense this next season. I mean, the offense is definitely going to improve, I think. This offense definitely is bound to have a much better season in 2021 than they did in 2020. But this defense does have a couple of question marks here. I mean, Wisconsin's always really good on the defensive side. So, I mean, we should see another good defense out of Wisconsin this upcoming season. But, I mean, who knows? There are a few question marks on this team going into next season. But overall, I mean, the schedule does set up pretty favorably for Wisconsin. And we'll get into that in a second. But if you look at the losses here, I mean, they do have a moderate amount of losses. But the chances of winning the West Division for Wisconsin, I mean, this team has got pretty much Iowa to take care of, and that's about it. I think it's either going to be Iowa or Wisconsin to win the division. Possibly Minnesota. You could possibly argue that Minnesota will be up there. Maybe they could be a dark horse team to win the West Division, but overall, it's either going to be Wisconsin or Iowa, I think. Either one of these teams. Iowa's also got some great returning production. It's going to be crucial to win games in the Big Ten West this season, though. There's going to be several competitive teams for sure. Minnesota could be up there. I mean, maybe even Nebraska, you could argue, possibly, if they have a crazy season. We've seen Scott Frost do some crazy things before, so who knows. But definitely a chance of winning the West Division. I definitely favor Wisconsin right now to win the division, with Iowa being not far behind. I definitely think Iowa's got a good chance to win it this season. This could easily be the Hawkeyes here, in my opinion. Looking at your schedule, now you start off the season on September 4th against Penn State. Got Eastern Michigan after that, then that Notre Dame game. Watch out for that Notre Dame game on September 25th, because let me remind you guys, Jack Cohn, he transferred to Notre Dame. So we're going to see a matchup between Jack Cohn and Graham Mertz on September 25th with the Notre Dame-Wisconsin game. That's going to make for quite a matchup there, I think, between Notre Dame and Wisconsin. Definitely be on the lookout for that one. They got Michigan to start October. They got Minnesota on the road on October 9th. Then you got Army, Illinois, Northwestern, Rutgers, Purdue, Nebraska, and Iowa to finish out the season. Iowa's definitely going to be your very important game of the season. I definitely think that will be the one crucial game for Wisconsin this season at the end of the year on November 27th against the Hawkeyes. That game, there's a very good chance that game will determine who wins the West title. With that being said, let's look at your first 6 games. I'm going to say Penn State, that's going to be a close game, 20 to 80% chance of winning it. I'd probably favor Wisconsin right now, but considering it's the first game of the season, we always see some crazy things in week 1 of action. So definitely watch out for that one. Eastern Michigan, I'd probably say that's a guaranteed win for Wisconsin unless something crazy happens. Then you got Notre Dame on September 25th. That's going to be a very interesting matchup there. Once again, Jack Cohn and Graham Mertz going head-to-head there. 2 Wisconsin quarterbacks. Should make for a fun game for sure. But Notre Dame's returning a lot of great production. I could easily see Notre Dame being a contender for the college football playoff next season. So I definitely think Notre Dame's got a good chance to make it pretty far next year. That's going to be a pretty tough game. Good thing for Wisconsin, they do have a bye week before that, so that definitely could come to be an advantage there for Wisconsin for sure. But if you look at the rest of the season here, you got Michigan on October 2nd. That could be a tougher game there. I'm going to keep it as a yellow game, meaning 28% chance of winning it. Minnesota on October 9th. That's going to be on the road. Minnesota overall, I think, could be a good team next season. Watch out for them. There's a chance that we do see them play halfway decent, I think, this season. But then, of course, you got in the second half of the season, you got Illinois to start off with in Champaign on October 23rd. I think Illinois next season probably won't be all that great, especially with all the coaching changes and everything. So I do think that'll be a guaranteed win for Wisconsin. Northwestern on the 30th. That could be a game to watch out for. I don't think Northwestern will be quite as good this season because they're losing quite a bit of talent, and I mean, there's a lot of players transferring away from there. But overall, I think that will still be a close game. Rutgers, Purdue, both guaranteed wins. Nebraska on the road, that could be a close game there. I think with it being in Lincoln, who knows, that could come to be a close matchup. But then you got Iowa that Iowa game is definitely going to be the closest one of the season, definitely the most important game, I'd say, because, I mean, the winner of that game is probably going to end up going on to win the Big Ten West. So that's going to be your crucial game of the season. But that being said, record prediction is going to be 9-3 to 11-1 for Wisconsin this season. Once again, these are just projections, so I'm not going to be predicting every game in these videos. I'll be actually predicting each one of these games in our final predictions coming out this spring. But that being said, that's your record prediction, or projection is what I should say. 4-3 to 11-1 is what I'm going for the Badgers right now. I'm definitely leaning towards a 10-2 to 11-1 season for Wisconsin. I definitely can see this team making it back to Indianapolis this next season. I think Notre Dame, that's going to be a tough game. Definitely, I think you got to watch out for that Penn State, maybe in that Iowa game. Once again, that Iowa one's going to be very important. But that being said, that wraps up my projections for Wisconsin. Let me know your thoughts and comments below on Wisconsin. Let me know your record projections, all of that down in the comments. I appreciate you guys all watching as well. Yeah, stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll see you guys all later.